All right. Thank you very much, Elena. So happy to be joined by Morgan Fox, the Director of Government Relations for NORML down there in Washington, D.C. He's a regular contributor to We Talk News and Pro Cannabis Media Productions, and we thank him for that. Morgan, always good to see you.
Great to see you, Jimmy.
Tell me, please, what is going on with the DOJ now? Is it the DEA? Is it the FDA? Is it the DEA? Who is in charge of who's going to make a decision to get us to reform? Because I heard the White House press secretary mention the fact, well, now it's in the DOJ's, world now. And I'm like, I haven't heard that. Tell me, please, where are we with rescheduling, the DEA ever making a decision? What's the latest?
Well, I mean, we're in the same place that we have been for months now since Department of Health and Human Services submitted its recommendations to the DEA. DEA has final jurisdiction over where cannabis is placed in the Controlled Substances Act. Of course, Congress could easily change that. And there have been hundreds of cannabis activists on Capitol Hill this week urging their members of Congress on both chambers and both sides of the aisle to do just that. But obviously, everybody is still kind of waiting with bated breath to see what the DEA is going to do. There have been rumors that there could be an announcement today. I don't put much stock in those rumors. The DEA traditionally has taken its sweet time announcing anything, and it generally has stuck with the status quo. Despite the fact that HHS has recommended that they move cannabis to Schedule 3, despite the fact that the White House has been pressuring them to announce a rescheduling notice, we're still not really hearing anything from it. And I would caution anybody that hears rumors that it could be like, any day to really take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, or something else. And after all, it is 420 week. And I know there are going to be plenty of activities in all sorts of dispensaries from coast to coast. And at least now, Morgan, people are getting more and more used to the fact that the industry likes to celebrate at 4:20 in the afternoon, and also on April 20th, it happens to land on a Saturday. So are we getting more acceptance of where we're at as a society?
Well, I think a more important change that I've noticed over the years is one that directly is related to activism and advocacy. Back in the day, 420 was pretty much like entirely focused on just like the cannabis culture. As a professional activist, I would be able to like have more or less a day off. Nowadays, as my colleague Mike Lajewski at DPA, I think really put perfectly, is that being a cannabis advocate in April is like working retail in December. It is just absolutely brutal. And that is a really good development because there's a lot more focus on policy now than there ever has been. I mean, just yesterday, we saw the reintroduction of the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act, CAOA, in the Senate, as well as the introduction of the HOPE Act on the Senate side, to mirror the bill that currently exists on the House side, that we are, fingers crossed, going to be able to pair with banking reform and be able to push through in the next couple of months. So, while it might be exhausting, I really like the fact that like things have changed so much over the last decade and even the last couple of years, to the point where 420 is about the fight for freedom and the fight against injustice in equal parts now with a celebration of the plant.
There you go. And it usually is the number one sales day of the year in the industry. And now that I believe this is the first time it's fallen on a Saturday since 2019. And I'm pretty sure I did a little research on this. Does it sound right? 15 states have legalized since 2019. That seems like a huge number, but I checked on it. It's accurate.
It's been pretty exponential in terms of the rate at which states have been both considering and passing adult use legalization. Just to go back a second,
Yeah.
I would like to caution everybody: don't overconsume.
Well, if they watch our shows, they know my final words, whether it's my final words or Elena's final words are, it's a whole new world of weed. Use it responsibly. And yes, the industry is preaching responsible use. And more importantly, Morgan, get yourself educated, right? So you can be responsible about your use. That's all, right?
Exactly. Criminalization does nothing to educate people. Actually, talking to people about responsible consumption does.
Right. And also talking to people that may have an opinion on cannabis, but have never been enlightened on it. Nobody's ever talked to them openly about it. I'm finding that when I go out in my supermarket runs and post office runs and all that neat stuff, because I'm not afraid to talk about what I do because people are certainly interested enough in that. So, but I do want to bring up something that also happened this week is the Journal of American Medicine did a survey, and again shows research that in legal states, teen use of cannabis goes down. How many of these studies now have been done, and why in the world didn't Senator Mitt Romney understand that when he decided to write a letter to the DEA, keeping them at Schedule 1?
This has been a kind of a recurring thing. We've been tracking this information since, well before there were any adult use states, where we saw that teen use was either staying steady or decreasing in medical states. And even back in like the days when like medical was the frontier, there were a lot of people saying that allowing seriously ill people to be able to access the medicine that works best for them is somehow going to lead to like increased teen use. We clearly did not see that happen. Now that we have more than half of the residents of the United States living in states where cannabis is legal, we still continue to not see any of the spikes in teen use that our opponents were concerned about. In fact, more and more states are showing that they are seeing decreases in teen use, and I think that this is just one more piece of information that we really have an obligation to get out to the general public and to policymakers in particular, to show them that the sky is not going to fall when we regulate cannabis, and in fact, we do see positive associations with it.
Yeah, and the prohibition is, it's usually the first thing they go to. What about the kids? And I'm always like saying, you know what? The kids know more about this than you do, Mr. Adult, whoever that happens to be. All right, now let's get back to the CAOA bill for a second. I got to give New York Senator Chuck Schumer credit. He takes a lot of abuse, I know, but I give him credit because he's not giving up, and he's really trying hard to move forward on some kind of reform. Does he have the numbers? He needs to get to 60, doesn't he?
Well, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see comprehensive descheduling legislation passed through Congress in the current session. But I think it's absolutely vital that this bill be introduced right now, so that we can gain as many co-sponsors as possible and be on a really solid footing when we go into the 119th session. But also to be able to just start having a more substantive conversation with lawmakers about exactly what descheduling and federal regulation should look like, especially in a form like CAOA that is focused on repairing the harms caused by prohibition. And obviously, like Senator Schumer has been amazing on this issue. I mean, this is the first time that we've ever had Senate leadership that has really embraced cannabis policy reform. In addition to CAOA gaining co-sponsors and really jumpstarting the conversation about substantive cannabis policy reform at the Senate level, I fully expect that we're going to see movement on more incremental legislation like SAFER and veterans protection and expungement.
Let's hope. I'll check each one of those boxes because that would be a huge progress for the industry too. And I know that if they get it off Schedule 1, that gets rid of that 280E clause. The percentage impact on a industry like cannabis, if that 280E clause comes out, is huge. I mean, it automatically takes margins from like this big to like this big, if you will. Are we still gonna? Do you think that is going to be the final result here?
I mean, honestly, there's not much appetite for standalone 280E reform, but as part of broader descheduling, I mean, that's definitely one of the benefits. Um, I think that regardless of the federal tax rate, this is something that is probably going to be following broader reform as it well should. Um, in the meantime, it is entirely feasible that we can pass banking reform right now and provide a lot of relief to struggling businesses, which is basically all of them. Small businesses predominantly because all the big MSOs already have bank accounts, they already have VC capital like coming in left and right, but the small mom and pops, when they have to pay $10,000 for a bank account, that becomes really prohibitive in terms of their ability to be able to succeed.
Absolutely. And it's been the single one issue that's been out there really since the beginning of reform, that the industry continues to get vilified by the banking industry. And when I explain this to the bankers, I'm like, guys, I'm not smart enough to launder money. Okay, I have to learn how to make it first before I could launder it. Okay. That being said, they're following the rules, and who am I to question that? I do want to talk to you a little bit about this story that came out of New Mexico over the last week or two, when federal border patrol checkpoints have stopped and confiscated and detained drivers that are transporting legal cannabis inside a legal state. When I read the headline, I was like, what is going on here? And now I think that company is suing the feds in some way. Everybody likes to sue everybody, but how weird and how surprising is it?
Well, I do want to tell you and your viewers that people on Capitol Hill are talking about this case. It is fairly egregious, but this is something that I always have to remind everybody about, is that cannabis is still illegal at the federal level, and despite the president's pardons, those are only retroactive. People are still being arrested in our national parks, in government buildings, on tribal land, for low-level cannabis offenses that prior to October have been pardoned. So I think that it's incumbent upon us to ask the Biden administration to really expand the scope of the pardons, but we really can't address the issue until we stop arrests overall. And I think that the best way to go about doing that is through descheduling. Also, I think it's really important to note that no matter where you are, if you're in a legal or an illegal state, Customs and Border Patrol has jurisdiction within 100 miles of the U.S. border. And so it does not matter if the laws in your state permit legal cannabis. If Customs and Border Patrol catches you with cannabis within 100 miles of the U.S. border, they can arrest you and they can charge you.
And it's a tough lesson to learn this way, but how else are you going to learn it in this type of industry that continues to grow at the state level and vilified at the federal level?
Well, I mean, not to mention that, but cannabis arrests continue to be one of the top five triggers for deportation or denial of citizenship applications. And even working in the legal cannabis industry can be enough to get you classified as having quote unquote low moral character and deny you citizenship.
I've had low moral can. No, no, I'm kidding. I've had that for a long. No. So what's next? I mean, what's on your to-do list, Morgan? I mean, it's pretty long. It's been a long week. There's been a lot of lobbying activities going on. It's a 420 week and all that. What's the most pressing issue right now on your to-do list?
Really, just keeping up the momentum that NORML and all of the organizations that have been part of this really momentous push on Capitol Hill this 420 to bring this issue to the forefront, to continue that collaboration, continue working together to push this legislation. while it might be difficult to pass standalone legislation in the current Congress, just getting as many co-sponsors as we possibly can on every single cannabis-related bill that we can, getting language into appropriations bills that are going to be coming up. In particular, the language that would protect state legal adult use programs from interference with from the federal government. Talking about pushing the Biden administration to expand clemency and pardons, to vocally support descheduling, which the administration has not yet. There are so many things that we can be doing leading up to the election, but I think that the overarching idea is to make sure that people are talking about cannabis in this political season. Yeah. And make sure that this issue becomes a higher priority in the minds of both the voting public, but also policymakers.
Absolutely. And again, does it make sense to use cannabis as a political pawn? Oh, I don't know. Let's say October this year, right before the election. I mean, could it come down to the last minute?
I think that we're going to see cannabis being bandied around for various people's benefits. I think that what's really important is that people that support these policy changes don't let the issue become a joke or political fodder and say, look, this is a serious policy matter. It's something that is supported by the vast majority of Americans. You cannot use it as a political football. We need to be serious about it.
Yeah. And then you still have senators like Rand Paul going on podcasts saying, well, I think it'll be unlikely, and we have far more pressing issues to take care of. That, when I hear that, it means that somebody's just not dialed in to what's going on around them or in their own state. Again, looking at it from outside in, those are the kinds of comments that what Senator Mitt Romney did. I find that a lot of these prohibitionists have come out of the woodwork over the last few months. They weren't heard from for quite a while. And now in an election year, they're being heard from and they're pushing back and they're trying to get the DEA to do nothing, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Anybody that is trying to actively fight a scheduling review when cannabis clearly does not belong in Schedule 1 is really out of touch with both the science and the general feeling of the populace.
Yeah, I'm with it. 88% now. The latest poll, I guess, the survey that was done on both medical and adult use recreational, and it's getting more and more and more percentage-wise on the acceptance side, isn't it?
Yeah, and the stigma is steadily eroding. But again, a lot of people really considered this issue to be somewhat of a joke, which is really problematic considering that the penalties associated with what they consider to be a joke destroy people's lives.
Right. They don't. I'm not sure they really care about. They really. I wish they did. I just don't like the flavor that's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, the pointing of fingers, because your party said this, therefore my party's going to say that, because I can't agree with anything that party, that's not the way this country was built. It's not the way the country is supposed to work. All right. We're not a true democracy anymore. I get that, but it's really I don't think I could do the job that you do, Morgan. Pretty simple right there. Because I would be really upset. I'm pretty volatile anyway. And I'm sure that I would have a bad reaction to some news item I heard or something. And that probably wouldn't go over with the powers that be anyway. It's probably not the best.
I'm sure you'd be great at it.
Morgan Fox, I really do enjoy talking to you once a month from Washington, D.C. Thank you for all the hard work that you and NORML put in, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future, and have a wonderful week of 420.